Mitchie, you're very welcome. Hit the wee follow button wherever it may be. Now, Friday the 8th of March was International Women's Day, and it was marked here with the unveiling of two statues in the grounds of Belfast City Hall for two amazing local women. One was anti-slavery campaigner Mary Ann McCracken, and the other was suffragist and trade unionist Winifred Carney. Now, I'd written in my column in the Irish News about the disgraceful lack of memorials to women, highlighting the case of Mary Ann McCracken back in February 2021. Indeed, I'm not the first member of my family to criticise the statues around Belfast City Hall. That accolade goes to my late father, who was a Belfast City councillor way back in the 1960s. Now, my dad possessed a wicked sense of humour and was no respecter of the pomp and ceremony which surrounded the council in those days. And he had a regular habit of getting himself thrown out of council debates. I don't know where I get my cantankerous nature from. It's a mystery to me, you understand? Now, one such occasion was in the early 1960s during a debate about the city's lamentable provision of car parking, following a dramatic increase in car ownership at that time. So, during the debate, my father proposed his solution. He suggested that the council could remove the multitude of what he termed useless statues surrounding Belfast City Hall, throwing them in the bin, allowing the creation of a much-needed car park in their place. We can but imagine the uproar which ensued. I do know that not for the first nor the last time, my father was ordered to withdraw from the proceedings. Get out, okay? Get out of the meeting! Now, in my column again in the Irish News in June 2020, I said that I didn't agree with my father's solution to Belfast statues. I am not in favour of pulling statues down. I'm just not. Counterintuitively, I instead suggested that we erect more statues, but not to politicians or military men. We have enough of them. Instead, we should erect statues to individuals who've excelled in other fields, especially if they come from minorities seldom memorialised, such as women. Now, leaving aside female statues of royalty, at that time, the only statue in Belfast depicting a woman was the monument to the unknown woman, worker, erected in 92 on Great Victoria Street. And while that's commendable, I argued the time had come to memorialise an actual local woman who is still alive and who I believe deserved such recognition. And that woman's name is Dame Susan Jocelyn Bell Burnell. An amazing story. In 1967, whilst working as a postgraduate student, she made one of the most significant scientific discoveries of the 20th century when she identified the first radio pulsar. Now, don't ask me to explain to you what that is. That's well above my pay grade. Look it up. Now, she was born in Lurgan in 1943, and she faced an uphill battle from childhood to progress as a scientist. She tells the story of her father having to go into the school to fight with the teachers to teach her science, because that wasn't a subject for girls in them days. And when she eventually progressed into her chosen field, which was astrophysics, well, that was almost exclusively the domain of men. Another story she tells, imagine this, as she was a student at university, she was the only female in the class. And when she went into lectures, all the dickhead men used to stomp and beat their desks. Oh, didn't put her off. She helped construct a massive radio telescope while studying in Cambridge. Her thesis advisor was a guy called Anthony Huish, and he gave her the job of analysing the miles of data that this thing produced. Now, to get in some sort of idea of this, you kids won't understand this, but in the old days, computers used to punch out a continuous roll of paper, right? And it just would pump it out, like, just keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. There was miles of this stuff, miles. And her job was to go through every sheet on that graph looking for a particular little beep. The 24-year-old's tenacious perseverance paid off, and she managed to isolate an anomaly in the data, later identified as the first ever recorded example of a radio pulsar. So important was that discovery that in 1974, the two professors in charge of the experiment, Anthony Hewish and Martin Ryle, well, they were awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics. And despite being the actual person who had observed the pulsar and recognised it and identified it, there was no recognition for Bell. A disgraceful omission, criticised by many at the time and by me now, and I do understand that in academia that is not unusual, but still, I would have had my nose put out a bit, I have to say. Jocelyn Bell Burnell was not like that. She refused to be embittered, and she went on to have a glittering career as a physicist, becoming the first ever female president of both the Institute of Physics and the Royal Society of Edinburgh. In 2018, she received the 2.3 million Special Breakthrough Prize for her work on pulsars and a lifetime inspiring leadership in the scientific community. And wouldn't you know, she selflessly donated all that money to help fund studentships for women, underrepresented ethnic minorities, and refugee students to become physics researchers. I argue this is a woman we can all be proud of, and a scientist deserving of recognition, such as a statue, which I believe would elicit inspiration for generations to come with no conflict in any way, shape, or form. That's my wee rant. You decide whether you think I'm right or wrong. I'm sure the woman would be mortified even by the suggestion, but it would be nice if we could put up a statue to a woman from here who just didn't happen to be 200 years dead. Rant over. Rant over.
That's all, folks.